Jewelry isn't a gift you give just once. It's a way to remind your loved one of a beautiful moment every time they see it. Blue Nile can help you find the gift that says how you feel and says it beautifully, with expert guidance and a wide assortment of jewelry of the highest quality at the best price. Go to BlueNile.com and experience the convenience of shopping Blue Nile, the original online jeweler since 1999. That's BlueNile.com to find the perfect jewelry gift for any occasion. BlueNile.com.
Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. See ebaymotors.com.
Last year,
It's happened!
they went and took it.
He struck him out looking!
This year,
The Texas Rangers win the World Series!
they're here to run it back.
It's over!
This is Believe in Texas Rangers, hosted by Mitch Ferreldis.
They got back in the win column, but concern still lingers on both sides of the ball. Welcome into this episode of Believe in Texas Rangers. Be sure, if you like what you're hearing, you subscribe, you rate 5 stars, you tell your friends, share with everybody, share with literally everybody, where you can find more of your Texas Rangers content. We come at you via podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Believe Podcast landing page, and you can also find us on YouTube when you search Believe in Texas Rangers or search my name, Mitch Ferreldis. Either one should produce the episodes for you when you look on YouTube. But let's focus on what we need to, which is the Texas Rangers. And we're recording this on a Thursday morning. We're doing a double dip episode again today. So half of this episode will be reacting to the series against the Guardians. And then I'm really excited to talk with Jeff Fletcher, who covers the Angels for the Orange County Register and Southern California News Group. Excited to talk with him about the Angels and the return to Texas as a manager for Ron Washington. I know he's been back before when he was coaching with the Braves, but this is the first time, if I'm not mistaken, that he's coming back to Globe Life Field as manager of a different team. So this should be an exciting weekend upcoming when the Angels get here tomorrow. But let's focus on what just happened. So yesterday's Wednesday win, and thank goodness for that, because it was getting to a rough patch for the Rangers. They had lost 5 in a row after the Tuesday night loss. Of course, you're going back to 3 straight losses against the Rockies. Of course, they got swept in Colorado. And then the first 2 games against the Guardians, both of them allowing 7 runs to the Guardians offense. And in the first game, the Rangers scored 0. In the second game, the Rangers scored 4. Too little, too late kind of scenario. And you start to worry if this is the kind of stretch that's eventually going to doom the Rangers. And luckily, we're not doom and gloom anymore. They got the win yesterday, and we're going to focus on that first because, man, oh man, Jon Gray continues to dazzle as a starting pitcher for this club. 6 1/3 innings, 4 hits, no runs allowed. He struck out 3 and he walked 2. So the strikeout pitch wasn't there necessarily, but that doesn't bother me as much. He got 94 pitches, so he was able to pitch into the 7th inning and have a relatively fair pitch count getting to that spot. His ERA on the season is now 2.08. So to think back, all the way back to that opening weekend against the Cubs where he struggled. It wasn't a great start for Jon, and we're thinking, oh no, here we go again. Jon's not going to be able to cut it eventually once this rotation gets a little more full, when the likes of Max Scherzer and Cody Bradford and Tyler Mahle eventually make their way back. Jacob deGrom eventually makes his way back. We're thinking, oh no, this could be the sign of trouble, the first sign of trouble for Jon. And since then, he's been maybe the best pitcher in the American League. And I think I can say that with conviction, because when you consider who are some of the best pitchers in the league right now, like I think of Ranger Suarez. Well, he's with the Philadelphia Phillies. And you think about other pitchers in the American League. Shane Bieber was off to a great start, but he's done for the year. Garrett Cole hasn't pitched once yet to start this year for the Yankees. There's nobody, as far as statistically speaking, that's really in Jon Gray's way right now when it comes to how good you are compared to your peers in the American League. Again, he's got an ERA of 2.08, and he started the year, and we're wondering, oh my gosh, is Jon going to be able to stay in this rotation given how deep the Rangers were able to make their rotation? Like, it's hard to fathom. But at the same time, this is kind of what you were hoping for when the Rangers first signed him a few years ago, because they gave him a good amount of money. I mean, when you think about the way Jon Gray has been pitching this year, his ERA is 2.08, which is 7th best in baseball. It's the 3rd lowest among American League pitchers. Okay, so he's up there in a very strong group, but it's not the names that you would expect, right? Seth Lugo for Kansas City has been killing it this year with his new ball club. He has a 1.66 ERA. Tarek Skubal, the Tigers' young left-hander, he has a 2.02 ERA. And then it's Jon Gray at 2.08. And the guy right behind him just got suspended for 10 games in Ronel Blanco. I think it goes to show just how far Jon has come. It goes to show that Jon really has been working hard and really been dedicating to improve this year. Because when they signed him a few years ago, they gave him a good hefty amount of change. Nothing in comparison to what they eventually gave Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, but he was still getting paid a ton of money for his position. And this was a guy that felt very slighted by his previous organization. This is a guy that was very hopeful to prove himself worthy. And we saw little bits of it during the postseason run where he came in relief and pitched very strong. But right now, Jon Gray is pitching at a level that he could contend for not just an all-star spot, but the all-star start. And we know how significant it is to be named the all-star starter. Like, it's an honor to be given that, to be the halfway through the season deemed best pitcher. And I'll tell you something else, and you all probably know this already. The all-star game is going to be at Globe Life Field. So don't you think that Bruce Bochy, who's going to be managing the American League club, would lean in the direction of Jon Gray if Jon is named an all-star? Now, maybe we're far ahead of it. It's May. There's still a lot that can happen, but I have to emphasize and applaud the job that Jon Gray has done, because it has been about as good a job as you could imagine. And it's so good to see him pitch this well, especially given the conditions of the team's rotation right now, because it is very spread thin. Very spread thin. The bad side, as far as the Rangers rotation is concerned, Jack Leiter got his 3rd start of the season. He pitched in the Oakland series as part of that doubleheader. And then his most recent start just came on Tuesday against the Guardians. And once again, it did not go well. Should we be concerned at this point? I mean, that's up for you to decide as to whether or not you want to be concerned with the matter. But I kind of lean in the direction of there's a lot of expectations put upon Leiter, and it's only a matter of time before he figures out how to pitch at the major league level, because clearly he can figure out how to pitch at the minor league level. He's been in AAA for the other parts of the year, and he's had some great quality starts. But Tuesday was another case of just not great outing from Jack. An inning and 2/3, 3 hits allowed, 6 earned runs allowed, 1 strikeout and 3 walks on 64 pitches. It was far from ideal, because the first inning he threw a lot of pitches because he was struggling with command. And then in the second inning, he comes out, albeit after a 9-pitch inning or a 10-pitch inning by the Rangers offense against Ben Lively, and then proceeded to give up 6 runs, some of them via the long ball. The stat that really stood out to me, we got courtesy of Nugget Chef, who works with Underdog Fantasy. I apologize for not knowing his actual name. Apologies, Nugget Chef. But here's the stat. Jack Leiter has a 16.39 ERA in the major leagues. That is tied for the third highest ERA through the first 3 starts of a pitcher's career in the live ball era, which is to say since 1920. The only pitchers with a higher ERA through 3 starts and a minimum of 9 innings pitched are Dan Reichert in 1997, who had a 20.00 ERA, and Ed Keegan in 1959, an 18.00 ERA. This will flatten out once he gets more innings pitched, but the fact that he has already reached the minimum of 9 innings pitched over a course of 3 starts, and the ERA is still that ballooned, definitely worries me. But worries me in a way that it's similar to how I felt about Wyatt Langford when we were just waiting for that first home run to be hit, and he came so close multiple times where it was up against the wall. And then when he finally hits the first home run, and it's an inside the park home run because, of course, that's just that's baseball. But there's such a level of expectation, especially because he was the former number 2 overall pick, especially because he had pitched so well at Vanderbilt, especially because he had been cruising at a good rate through the minor leagues. He's only been with the organization since 2021. And I think there's extra pressure as a result of this Rangers rotation is beat to hell, injury speaking wise. There is so much struggle, and I would have to think there's a lot of pressure that's on Jack as a result of all the circumstances around him. Maybe he needs another month of seasoning in the minors. He was just sent back down to Round Rock, so he'll probably get back into a AAA start in a matter of days here. But man, it's tough to watch right now. And most of it's not all his fault. There are some occasions where he gets burned by a couple of miscues on defense, because that sometimes happens. You put the ball in play and the defense is not able to back you up, unfortunately, or the ball is just out of reach of the defense, whatever the case may be. I'm not trying to defend Jack too much. I'll leave it at this. He's going through it right now. I'll feel a lot better once he gets through a 5th inning of work, but right now it's just not looking good for the young right-hander. As far as trending back up, it's really good to see Adolis Garcia play well these last 3 games against the Guardians. His last 3 because we had talked about how his stock was kind of trending down so far in this month of May. It has been a very rough month of May for Adolis. But in these last 3 games, he is 4 for 12, which is a .250 batting average. He has scored 3 times. He's doubled. He's homered twice. He's driven in 3 runs. Unfortunately, those home runs were a solo shot and a 2-run shot. So be it. And then he struck out 3 times, but all those strikeouts came in the Friday game against the Guardians. So less of the strikeouts in the latter 2 games, which leads me to believe that Adolis is kind of finding his stroke again, which they need him to, the way that the offense has really struggled the last, several weeks. And at the same time, the pitching staff, parts of the pitching staff, have done so well that they need the offensive production that Adolis Garcia can provide. They need him to be that guy that gives the team a boost when they need it most. So it was good to see him perform well these last couple of games. Maybe that continues when the Angels come into town on Friday. Here's another good stat. Speaking of how well some of the pitching has done. I love this stat. Shout out to Stefan Stevenson, who covers the Rangers with Fan Nation or Sports Illustrated. The Rangers improved to 12-1 on the year when both David Robertson and Kirby Yates pitch. Also, Kirby Yates unfortunately lost his 0 ERA. He allowed his first run of the year on Tuesday. Sad. We're all bummed. But again, I go back to what I said a few episodes ago about how the Rangers might have the dynamic duo at the back end, maybe a next iteration of what the Kansas City Royals had in 2015. They continue to pitch like this, and they have been continuing to pitch in a dominant and clutch fashion every time they are called upon. Again, their combined ERA is like below 1. And at the time that we read that stat, Kirby Yates still had a 0 ERA. He's since allowed 1 run on the year, but that duo has continued to shut hitters down at the end of games. And that's exactly what you would have wanted, because that's exactly what they've needed this whole time, is 2 guys at the back end who could shut down a game. And it was nice that they were able to replace Jose Leclerc as early as they did, because, you know, Jose has not been perfect this year. Jose is still valuable to the bullpen, especially given Josh Sborz' recent injury, again, back on the IL. And Owen White, another one of the young Rangers prospects, has not been up to snuff to start this season. He had another outing against the Guardians on Friday, 1 inning, and he allowed 3 hits and 3 runs on 23 pitches. Like, some of the young pitchers, they just don't have it right now. So they need the veteran experience of Jose Leclerc. I know he got the loss on Friday or on Monday because it was a great outing by Michael Lorenzen. But at the same time, the offense didn't back up the team. So it can't just all be put on Jose. Speaking of pitching, we got a couple of injury updates, and then we're going to transition to the part of the episode where we interview Jeff Fletcher with Orange County Register. So Max Scherzer, as one of the transactions that was made in the last couple days by the Rangers, Max Scherzer has been moved to the 60-day injured list as he continues to rehab from his back surgery. But it's interesting because it's technically not rehabbing from back surgery anymore, or his back injury anymore. It's because of this nerve issue that was discovered as a result of thumb pain that he was feeling. But then that thumb pain was starting to go into the tricep area, I think it was. And now it's kind of like a whole new injury for Scherzer. And I think the team knew that he wasn't going to be coming back anytime soon. So the easiest thing they could do was just transfer him over. It frees up a 40-man spot. And then they signed Sean Anderson, who's had some experience not only starting, but relieving the right-hander. So they add him to the current roster. And you know, hopefully Max Scherzer can be back. I think he's been on the injured list for about 50 days, I think I read the other day. And I don't think it's likely that he's going to return within 10 days. I think he's kind of in limbo, as we alluded to the last time we talked about Max Scherzer. But kind of a blow. And not, you know what? Not kind of a blow. It's a blow. Especially given the state of the rotation that we've emphasized again and again ad nauseum. The return of Scherzer would be the golden goose for the Rangers. And you just hope, karma cap, that it doesn't come with any repercussions as a result. But that's the latest on Scherzer. He did undergo MRIs, I'm reading, courtesy of Jeff Wilson with Rangers Today. Underwent MRIs on Monday for his neck and triceps. Previous imaging had shown no damage on his elbow. He has consulted with Dallas-based vascular specialist Dr. Gregory Pearl, who's known for treating thoracic outlet syndrome. All signs point to a nerve issue, which has touched a nerve, Jeff pens. There's one other injury update I want to get to, and boy, oh boy. I hope this works on the first try, because it's been a minute since I've played this.
Wyatt Watch.
Yeah, we got a Wyatt Watch. Let's play it one more time, because I've missed it.
Wyatt Watch.
Shout out Jason Veazey, my guy with Big Fast Awesome. So another update courtesy of Jeff Wilson with Rangers Today. Shout out Jeff. Wyatt Langford is on his way to Arizona. He's where I am, actually. He's heading to the Rangers complex in Arizona. And surprise, he's going to start to work on his rehab from that strained right hamstring. Jeff is reporting that he's going to be there for the next 10 to 14 days. Also goes on to say he should start to run the bases next week. And maybe that these games in Arizona could serve as the rehab assignment, because Arizona's not too far from Dallas, of course. We'll see when he comes back. Jeff is projecting that he could be ready for the end of this month, which is the World Series rematch against the Diamondbacks in Texas. Wouldn't that be a fun time to bring back Wyatt Langford is to introduce him to the team that you just beat a year ago. That should also be a fun 2-game set. I know it's only 2 games, which is kind of a bummer, but that should be fun when the Rangers and the Diamondbacks play again. Those were 2 of the more fun stories of last season. So that's the update on Wyatt, which is to say maybe he'll be back before the end of this month. If not, then it'll probably be beginning of June that he comes back, which either way, I'm fine with. I think he needs to take the time to recover as much as he needs while simultaneously knowing that there's help needed when it comes to this team. So that's going to do it for the reaction portion of the Rangers against the Guardians. They take only one of the 3 games, outscored 14-8 in the series. But now it's time to turn to the Angels and to give us a little more insight on the team that's coming in and the manager that is leading that team, who we're all very familiar with. Here is Orange County Register's Angels beat writer, Jeff Fletcher.
Jewelry isn't a gift you give just once. It's a way to remind your loved one of a beautiful moment every time they see it. Blue Nile can help you find the gift that says how you feel and says it beautifully, with expert guidance and a wide assortment of jewelry of the highest quality at the best price. Go to BlueNile.com and experience the convenience of shopping Blue Nile, the original online jeweler since 1999. That's BlueNile.com to find the perfect jewelry gift for any occasion. BlueNile.com.
Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. See ebaymotors.com.
Welcome back. As the Rangers are set to host the LA Angels, if I'm not mistaken, for the first time this year, wanted to get a little insight on the Angels, and of course, wanted to ask for some insight on the very special connection that a current member of the Angels has with this Rangers organization. So no better guy to turn to for this than Jeff Fletcher, who covers the team with the Orange County Register as part of the Southern California News Group. Jeff, how are you doing this morning?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for taking the time, of course. So I want to just start with a basic 30,000-foot view of the way that the Angels season has gone this year. And then I want to specifically dive into the lack of Ohtani aspect into a minute. But for right now, just an overarching view of this iteration of the Angels.
Well, it's very simple. They won 73 games last year. They lost Ohtani, and they did not replace him, which makes them worse. The only way they were going to get better is if they got healthier from guys like Mike Trout and Anthony Rendon, and if a lot of their young players took significant steps forward, Logan O'Hoppe, Zach Neto, Reed Detmers, that kind of thing. So far, none of that's happened. So they're worse. They're worse than the 73-win team than they were last year. They still could get back to that level if, those young guys do take steps forward and, Trout comes back, Rendon comes back, that kind of thing. But as we sit here today, they are not a very good baseball team.
So you mentioned the young guys, and I'm very curious about a lot of the young guys they have. Specifically, you mentioned Detmers. I guess Griffin Canning is kind of the veteran part of that rotation now, but O'Hoppe as well was kind of a nice surprise before he got hurt last year. Is there at least what appears to be some sort of direction in terms of the young guys that they've been targeting these last few years?
I mean, I think they definitely have the core of a winning team there. I think that there's 6 or 7 or 8 guys that are young, that have shown potential in the big leagues to be legitimate, important players on a good winning big league baseball team. Right now, they're just not consistently doing it. But they still have the talent. They're still young. They still could get there. They could get there by the end of this year. Who knows? Those individual players. But, so they have those pieces. And then I think as those pieces kind of mature, then they're going to need to fill in around them, and they're going to need to get, better production from some veterans. Right now, their bullpen is a lot of experienced guys who should be better, who are not. that, definitely is something that they need to do. They need to get Trout back. They need to get Rendon back, that kind of thing.
How important, or I guess impactful, was it when there's rumors abound after Shohei Ohtani departs for the Dodgers in the offseason? Rumors abound, or just discussion throughout internet circles, that Mike Trout's got to get out of there. Mike Trout's got to do whatever he can to find that winning organization, that team's that's going to take him to a World Series. How impactful was it for him to immediately kind of dispel that talk and emphasize that he wants to stay with the Angels?
I don't think it had any impact at all on the Angels, because I think the Angels already knew that. I think everybody who's around Mike Trout and around the Angels knew Mike Trout's not going anywhere. So it was really the rest of the world that needed to be clued into that information. So as far as the way the Angels did their business, I think they've known Mike Trout's not going anywhere. I think the only way Mike Trout will go anywhere is if he can be totally healthy and MVP caliber production, and the rest of the Angels still stink and have no future. Only if those two things both happen, not just one of them, but both of them, would there be a chance to trade him. So, right now, neither of those things are happening. So, I think that he's not going anywhere.
Jeff Fletcher with the Orange County Register is joining us here to talk about the LA Angels. All right, I can't put off questions about the lacking of Shohei Ohtani anymore. Just from a reception standpoint, let's put it, like, of course, the fan base was very bought into the idea of having the unicorn that he is and continues to be for the Dodgers. What is the reception around the team in the first couple of months that he's no longer been a member of the Angels?
Well, I want to first offer this disclaimer that the Angels are not better off without him on the field. Nobody would say that at all. They definitely miss having their best pitcher and best hitter. And they'd be better as a baseball team if they had him. That being said, they do not miss a lot of the things that came with having him, which is a lot of the huge spotlight, a lot of the extra media hanging around. Every time you lose a game, the narrative is not just that you lost a game, but you're like this crime against the sport, that you're affecting Shohei Ohtani's legacy by not being a good enough teammate to him. I'm sure that was a pain in the butt for the players to have to hear about. And now they can just worry about themselves. And, if Logan O'Hoppe has a bad game or a slump, it's about Logan O'Hoppe. It's not about what Logan O'Hoppe is doing to Shohei Ohtani. So I think it's good for all of them, for their development, to not have to deal with that anymore. There were some other problems. He held up the DH spot. So, you couldn't give Mike Trout a day off at DH because Shohei Ohtani was there. They basically had to use a six-man rotation because of Ohtani, which means that's a little bit less reps for, Reed Detmers, Patrick Sandoval, all these other guys. So there are a bunch of little ways that certainly it helps to not have him. But I don't want anybody to interpret that as saying, this is sour grapes, the Angels are glad he's gone, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying that there are some positives to not having him.
It's an interesting take on it. I don't think I've heard it from that perspective before, but yeah, I guess when only one guy can really be the DH, it does kind of make things difficult, especially when Trout has suffered as many injuries as he had. I want to ask you kind of I don't know if it's Angel specific. It's probably kind of world specific. I think about the top 10 guys taken in the most recent draft class. So the 23 class. So that's Paul Skeens, who went 1, Wyatt Langford, who went 4, and then Nolan Schanuel, who went 10. And I can't remember a time that many from a very recent draft class found their way into the big leagues so quickly. Do you think there's a change happening in how teams are evaluating players when they draft them? Or is this just an anomaly of 3 really talented guys finding their ways to the bigs way quicker than possibly imagined?
Well, I think in the cases of like Paul Skeens and I'm not even sure where Wyatt Langford went to school. Where's he from?
He went to Florida.
Yeah. So those kind of guys at those big time baseball powerhouses, they get a lot of good development. They have a lot of technology. They are doing a lot of the same stuff that kids in the minor leagues are doing when they go out of high school and they're playing in the minor leagues in 18, 19, 20. So they're getting a lot of that development. Nolan Schanuel went to Florida Atlantic, so probably wasn't quite as much, but it's still better than it was 10 years ago. So I think that's part of it. I think that the players are just maturing faster, and I also think the teams are pushing them a little more because honestly, there's a clock is ticking on a player when he's his young years. You want to get all you can out of him before the salary goes up and you lose him. So if you keep a guy in the minor leagues till he's 24, then you're not going to get as many really good cheap years out of him because he's going to start to get expensive, at the time that he's really good. If a guy comes to the majors when he's 21, then you basically get all 6 years of his on the way up. If you put him in the majors when he's 24, then you might get the first 4 years when he's on the way up, and then he's going to start to go on the way down. So I think those are both part of the reason.
And Shannon Wells obviously was an instant contributor towards the end of last year. I know he had the on-base streak going at the beginning of this year, but outside of I think it was the home run last night, he's kind of scuffled around a bit, right?
I mean, he was in college this time last year, so I think that you have to be really careful with the expectations for him. I think that he still has a really good command of the strike zone, which is a lot of the battle for any young guy. You're not going to have really terrible slumps if you don't swing at bad pitches, which even in his bad slumps have not been that bad because of that. I think the question of him was going to be, is he going to have the power, that you'd like to have from a first baseman? Because he doesn't really hit the ball hard. His bat speed numbers are not great, but he's got 4 homers in a quarter of the season. So, that's okay. And if he continues to get on base, last year he had a 400 on base percentage. This year's not been quite as good, but if he can just be a consistent guy who's going to be 360 to 380 on base percentage and hit 15 homers a year, that's a valuable everyday Major League Baseball player.
Jeff Fletcher with Orange County Register joining us here on this episode of Believe in Texas Rangers. And of course, with these two teams meeting and the Angels making their way to Globe Life Field, it's a return for former Rangers manager Ron Washington, and I know he had been back to Texas before when he was a coach with the Braves, but this is his first time back where he's the manager of the team. Like, I know that the spotlight is not very great on Wash right now after the events of a couple of nights ago, but how has the first couple of months gone, and what changes have you noticed with Wash at the helm?
There's definitely some very tangible differences in the way the Angels do things. They run the bases like crazy. And I mean that crazy, sometimes in a good, sometimes in a bad way. They make a lot of outs on the bases, but they push the envelope, and that's what their team is all about. The infielders do this work every single day. Every infielder spends 5 or 7 minutes out there doing these little drills. And, I think that's helped him. He still really sounds confident and he motivates the guys. He's been through this before. Every team he's gotten to has kind of stunk when he showed up. And so he knows what it looks like when a team is just beginning to start its ascent. And he says that that's what's happening with the Angels. We'll see. But, the Rangers were not good when he got there. The Braves were not good when he got there. He was, of course, started with the A's, and they were not good. All these teams ended up being good. So we'll just see if that actually happens with the Angels. But, he is a really energetic guy, and he loves teaching. And so I think, for where the Angels are, it seems like he's probably the right guy.
All right, last 2 questions that I have, and they're both business related. They're not so much about the on-field product, but first place I want to start is something that these two teams can relate to with Texas and the Angels, and that's their TV provider, or their TV broadcaster, I should say. We know the story of Diamond Sports declaring bankruptcy, but there's still a few teams that they have the rights to broadcast for. And then it was a week ago or a couple of weeks ago that Xfinity is no longer serving Bally Sports. I'm just curious how the SoCal market is handling what is happening right now with Diamond Sports and Bally's.
Well, I mean, a lot of fans have been frustrated that if they're cord cutters, they can't get Bally Sports on their cable systems. And that has been, like a lot of people, if you go to YouTube TV, they don't have it, that kind of thing. So that's been really frustrating for a lot of people. But the good part is all the diamond networks, they're all a little bit different. Some of them make money, some of them don't. And I think that the Angels deal has always been one of their better ones. So they haven't really felt like they were going to get the plug pulled on them the way like the Padres were. So I think that they've not really operated in a way that was concerned, as far as the baseball team concerned about losing that money. So that certainly helps. But, as far as the fans go, I'm sure they would love to have some solution reached to where Bally's is available to more people.
Something else I'm sure that the fans would like either a little more clarity on or some resolution on has to do with ownership. And Artie Moreno did, and I can already tell you're kind of prepping for this because I know you wrote about it recently, again, about Artie putting the team up for sale and then retracting the team. And I don't know if we're necessarily going to get a resolution to that anytime soon, or if you think that he's just going to own this team until he decides he no longer wants to own the team years from now.
I mean, I think that, and fans aren't going to want to hear this, but I think the resolution is that he's the owner and he has no plans to sell the team as we sit here right now. I mean, I talked to him in spring training. He said, I'm here for the long haul. He basically faced the abyss, so to speak, of like, here's what your life would be like if you don't own a baseball team. And he didn't like it. So he said, forget it. I want to keep the team. And right now he has no plans to sell it. I mean, he's, I think he's 78 years old or so. So it's not going to go forever. But as we sit here now, he's the owner.
Jeff Fletcher, he's with the Orange County Register. He does a great job covering the Angels for them down there in the SoCal. Jeff, thanks so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Once again, thanks to Jeff Fletcher with the Orange County Register. We will be back after the Angels series has concluded to react and then get you ready for what's next to come for the Texas Rangers. So until that time, believe in Texas Rangers.
You know when you're listening to a true crime story that has an unbelievable plot twist that makes you stop in your tracks? That's what our podcast, People Are the Worst, brings you with each episode. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Rebecca. We're identical twins who love true crime cases that make you say, didn't see that coming, and we hate the people responsible for them. Listen to People Are the Worst now on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.